Well, so we are here, and it is another webinar for another month brought to you by Transformation Leader. And I'm actually super excited for today's episode and session. And in a timely manner, we are starting on time for a change. And the idea is that we're going to really try drive to make sure that we finish this also on time to respect people's time. And more so than anything, it is the topic that really haunts me, and that topic is crying in the bathroom is not a solution.
Hmm.
Hustle culture, hustle culture, hustle culture. Oh my gosh. Um, and 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 I guess what I really am curious to understand from the different people on the panel is number one, their real life experiences. Number two, how do they get through some of those experiences? And then thirdly is how do we connect with other people and then help them get through those experiences as well? So I am going to do this. I'm going to ask each one of you guys to introduce yourselves. And when you introduce yourself, please show off. Because if you don't show off for yourself, I'm going to show off on your behalf. And we're going to start off with, well, I should probably start off myself by introducing myself. I'm going to be the host and moderator for today's webinar. As highlighted to you, the episode or the title is Healing in Hustle Culture because crying in the bathroom is not a strategy. And I'm a mining engineer first and foremost, but secondly, I'm the host of the Shameless Podcast, which is also brought to you by T4L. Now, Suelo, I would like to maybe offer you the floor so that you can maybe introduce yourselves. And like I said, let's not be modest. You can start with Harvard.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. So I'm so excited to be here with you guys tonight and to be having this discussion together. As DK said, my name is Suelo Namfukwe, and I'm the founder of a company called Elevate Wellness Solutions Limited, and we're a holistic wellness services provider with our head office in Lusaka, Zambia, and another office in Austin, Texas. So yeah, I've been in the wellness space for over 17 years now. Crazy to think that it's been that long, and have been in this space for quite a while. I'm a clinical psychologist by profession and just really passionate about helping people achieve wellness and be the best versions of themselves, and just finding that the ways that they can thrive in this world and thrive just being who they are at their most authentic self. So super excited to be here tonight and to be having this discussion. And yeah, that's
Perfect.
me.
That is you. And
In
in a nutshell. And I think I'm really curious to understand from the professional standpoint, what does that mean when you talk about that hustle culture? Number one, some of the things that you see on a daily basis, but then more so, how do people work through that? So I think we'll unpack that a bit. And now going on to Tineo Muzenda, please introduce yourself. Again, let's not be modest. Mars is the world's biggest. Anyways, I'll let you talk.
Yeah, so thanks for that, Ziggy, and thanks for having me on the show. Really good to be chatting to two bright, mind-like individuals. And yeah, on my end, my name is Tineo Muzenda. I'm a national key account manager for a company called Mars, which is a global pet and confectionery manufacturer as well as food manufacturer. I'm a national key account manager at the firm where I look after a group called Pick and Pay, which is a massive retailer here in South Africa. And yeah, I like to pride myself on being a wisdom seeker. So outside of my day-to-day job, I quest myself to understand human behavior very well. So in simple terms, I'm a salesman, but I incorporate my salesmanship with understanding consumer behavior, human behavior, and social science of how humans interact with each other to come together to make an impact on a greater cause that is mutually beneficial. So, yeah, that's who I am. And yeah, luckily for me, my purpose and what I do fuses nicely together, allowing for me to essentially enjoy what I do on a day-to-day basis. So,
And
yeah, I
that
hope that.
And that's beautiful because I guess once you are enjoying what you're doing, once you're aware of what the things that you like doing, then it becomes a little bit easier not necessarily to be caught in what we are calling that hustle culture.
For
Now,
sure. For sure.
I've got a question for the both of you, and you only have 30 seconds to be able to answer this. And the question is very, very simple. It is, what's one moment when hustle culture nearly broke you?
Hmm.
Ladies
Solo.
first.
Yeah. So I think quite clearly about my time in the corporate world, which was an incredible time of growth and learning and just meeting incredible people and doing incredible things. But I think all of us who work in the corporate world or have worked in the corporate world know just how much pressure is put on you in that industry or in that area. And so after working corporate for 8 years, I just hit a point where I was like, I just can't keep doing this. I can't keep working from 7 a.m. to midnight and having people constantly, still question my value and my worth within an organization. Like, I'm exhausted, I'm tired. Crying in the bathroom was literally something that happened. And a lot of therapy after to be able to heal from what happened. And so just that constant push. And to be honest, I know 30 seconds is a short time, but to be honest, I don't even know that I felt the pressure from my immediate boss, who was incredible. I had such an amazing supervisor who actually encouraged rest and well-being. But, in the peripheries, there's other players who are, putting a lot of pressure on your department. And so yeah, definitely felt that need to constantly be on, constantly be producing, constantly be doing at the expense of my health and my well-being. Landed up in hospital, but thankfully learned a lot and lived to tell the tale, and hopefully to help others not end up in the same position that I was in at that time.
Wow. So ending up in hospital, and you, even though it wasn't your immediate boss, there was that person that came from around that then essentially started to deteriorate your mental well-being, but also it showed up in your physical space. Would that be fair to say?
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100% nailed
And
that.
and though you smile, though you laugh, and I laughed with you, I obviously appreciate that it was a very difficult time. And so maybe a bit later on, after
Yeah.
we let Tineo talk about what he what nearly broke him, we can dive a bit into that because I'm curious to understand what that was like for you, how you then got out, and how you're able to smile about it now. So,
Absolutely.
Tineo, yourself,
Yeah.
what is that? I'll repeat the question for you. What one moment when hustle culture nearly broke you?
Yeah. So for me, it's meeting an expectation that you've never met before.
Mhm.
I think when I started at my company, I was in what we call an individual contributor role that requires you to obviously execute through others. Coming into an environment where you don't know anybody and you need to execute through multiple individuals was a daunting reality for me. But I think touch wood on my side, I was really lucky to be in an organization that has number one, the support structures, and number two, the company culture that allows for you to firstly be vulnerable, and number two, ask for support without being judged when trying to deliver upon a certain objective. So for me, I didn't break because the environment enabled me to express myself, and the environment in turn then provided me what I needed to meet the expectation that I was required. So for me, that was the reality. And for me, the reality was about expanding my perception of hustle culture, because at times you think you're supposed to do it alone, when in reality, you live in an ecosystem that
Mhm.
is heavily reliant on dependency. And I think when hustle culture breaks you down, is when you don't expand your perception of that reality. So I was able to expand my reality really quickly, get the correct perception, and then look at the ecosystem that supported me accordingly, held them accountable as well at the same time, to help me collaboratively with them deliver upon this expectation. And the end result in that was not only me meeting my expectation, but everyone else achieving their secondary expectations as well, and the company overall achieving their main objective. So for me, it's just about expanding your perception and understanding that your reality is not just what you see. And the more you can get in touch with what the ecosystem looks like, the quicker you can get out of your own shadow.
I love that. I love that because getting out of your own shadow is probably one thing that we are all, whether it's your own mind or your own shadow, it's one thing that we're always constantly grappling with. So, with that being said, I did say that, and I want to expand a lot more on what you just talked about, Tineo, but I want to go back to Suelo. So, um, Suelo, you talk obviously about though your immediate boss didn't give you the pressure, you felt it from external, and you then reflect about how you healed through in hindsight you can laugh about it. What were the things that resulted in you being able to identify that you're in this space, number one, but then take yourself out and then start working on a more healthier way to fuel the ambitions you have?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And I think the first part, how did I recognize that I was kind of in that space? It's interesting because a lot of times you've probably heard the saying, like physicians make the worst patients, and usually have the hardest time like admitting to themselves that something is wrong. And I've always prided myself in being quite self-aware and being able to identify what my needs are, what my emotional state is. And for the longest time, I did know that I was stressed and I knew that I was overwhelmed and I knew that I was struggling a lot with relationships within the organization. I knew all of these things, but I always just kind of operated with this, oh, but things will get better. Like just keep trying harder and things will get better, or keep trying this and, people will get you or understand you eventually. And so it was kind of this duality of recognizing that I was struggling, but also still having to deal with the fact that that I was that I wanted more, and that more felt like it was still possible and it was still on the horizon. So for me, part of the recognition came from my husband, who was actually just my partner at the time. He was just like, you cannot keep going like this. You were literally sitting in the hospital. I just had an operation, and I was just not doing well and had multiple health issues that could not be explained, which in medical terms is usually there's something psychologically wrong with you. And my husband just said, you can't keep going like this. This is literally killing you. And you're a person that you fully can be. And it wasn't until he kind of just sat me down and I'm in this hospital with this hospital robe on. He was just like, you just can't keep doing this. That was a big moment of realization for me that, I'm so much of myself up in the process as well. Like it started with me giving myself permission to admit that I wasn't okay, all the ways that mattered to me. And that's not to say that I wasn't growing a lot or feeling like I was contributing things which mattered to me and which I was passionate about, but the environment as a whole just stopped serving me on a fundamental level, because I was having to give up too much of the things that mattered to me at the expense of my well-being. So healing came from probably a 2-year process of holding the resignation in my back pocket and not necessarily wanting to give up or let go too soon. But healing came when I gave myself that permission and then said, I'm done here. And that was the first step. And then after that, like I said, I'm not even joking, it took a lot of therapy. And so one of the processes for me that I think was the most impactful was going through something that's called EMDR, which is one of the modalities that I practice and that I'm certified in. But going through EMDR to kind of process the underlying trauma of what had happened to me in the
Hold on, Suelo. You can't just
okay,
use the word EMDR as though we,
EMDR.
I mean, as
You're
if we've all been to school and
as if
EMDR.
you all know what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So maybe for us, more less smart individuals, can you maybe just what is EMDR?
For those of you less clinical people, I'm not
Oh.
going to go with less smart because most of you are probably way more brilliant than I will could even dream of being. So EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And it is primarily a trauma treatment, but is useful in managing or dealing with any kind of issues that are causing significant disturbance, really, in the life of a person. So whether things which are leading you to feel anxious or feel depressed, it's a really great modality because it really just works with the brain. It's what I call brain work. And allows your brain to process all of the things which it's getting stuck in that causes that emotional dysregulation, the hypervigilance, the constant you go to work and you feel like your heart is racing and you feel like you're running a marathon, even though you're just stepping into the office. It helps you be able to process all of the underlying experiences and things that lead you to feeling that way. And so for me, being able to go through that specifically around what had happened to me in the organization was completely transformational. It went from not being able to talk about the situation without visibly looking terrified. I remember I met up with two of my friends just after I left work at one of the hotels in Lusaka, and they asked me why I left. And I just remember feeling again that hypervigilance, like I couldn't talk about it. I felt scared. Um, and I couldn't talk about it without feeling like I was going to break down. And that process for me just transformed my ability to be able to see the people involved as human and have the kind of empathy towards them that I ultimately want to hold for anyone that I interact with, but had started to lose because of the dynamic of what was happening to me in that context. So being able to just see them as people who are struggling and going through their own stuff as well, and being able to even see my own part in maybe not reaching out and trying to build better relationships with people, it just helped me see it for what it truly was, at least from my perspective and my paradigm, right?
Yeah.
Which allowed me then to be able to move on and be able to smile about it. And that's not to say that because I feel like I found healing around it, some thoughts about it still aren't painful. They are, there's some things that just always gonna hold a measure of pain to them, but it's not crippling and it's not that, that destructive or completely just shattering pain. It's more just the pain of what could have been versus what actually
Yeah.
was, or those kinds of things.
That's beautiful. And so at this point, before I switch over to ask Tineo a question, like I said to you guys, you also can ask yourselves
Yeah,
questions
for
or even
sure.
ask me.
I'd love to comment on your story, right? I mean, for me, I haven't been in this situation that you're in, but I think one thing I can relate to is the fact that firstly, I've worked for multiple different companies that have different cultures, and what I've come to realize is that depending on the company that you work for and the environment that you are embedded in at the time, your ability to become resilient is highly dependent upon the resources offered to you to build your resilience. So if I could speak about the first place that I worked for, it was a small company, resources were limited, and my resilience was dependent upon what my ceiling of resilience was. Okay. Fast forward to where I am now, working for Mars. It's a company that's been running for 3-4 generations now. They have really great systems, not just operationally, but culturally as well. They support systems from a mental health perspective, from a psychological perspective, from an educational perspective. And what I've really learned to do really well is understanding that you can still hustle and struggle at the same time, right?
Right.
But the prerequisite for hustling and struggling at the same time is the fact that you need an environment that enables you to be vulnerable in the struggle while you build your resilience to hustle.
Mm.
And time again,
Mm.
I've been able to break ceilings that I myself didn't know I could break purely because of the environment, not myself, but because the environment itself was enabling. I had leaders who could
Mm.
read me well. So the leaders are highly emotionally intelligent, they're empathetic,
Yeah.
and they lead with a form of mentorship as well. So it's not just about managing, but it's about growing you as a person. And when all those
Yes.
factors come, I mean, I would like to call it a perfect environment, but when you're placed in a perfect environment, time and time again, you will break a ceiling of resilience, and your resilience will naturally build without you having to
Mm.
build.
And you
Mm.
know, I find that so enlightening because sometimes we look at hustling and you just go, and then you never really think about that building of resilience in that ecosystem. But before I go on to the
Mm.
next question, I've got to just make a little shout out because we want people to interact. We want people to put comments. You've got questions. You got whatever it is that you want to do. Right now, I'm seeing people from Botswana, Kenya, Zambia. So keep it coming for all of those who are listening. And let's not be shy either with your comments, but first and foremost, we would like to hear where you're from and what you'd like to also get out of this webinar. So for those of you listening, just go ahead and put your post in the comment section on whatever platform you're listening to us on. So Dine, I've got a question around um, what is hustle? I mean, we talked about hustle culture. In your mind, what is that hustle culture? And um, is there anything that you have experienced that might have then redefined what hustling means to you?
Yeah, great question. So, I mean, for me, from a personal perspective, and I think a lot of individuals can relate to this, but at the beginning, where you're still in your youth, you think that hustling is a one-man job, right? You think that hustling is rewarded by your effort, it's rewarded by your grit, it's rewarded by what you put in. But the reality is that hustle is amplified by how you connect with others, firstly, and hustling is amplified by how you're able to make a collaborative impact, right? But not only serving your own agenda, but by helping others serve their agenda too. And ultimately, you get what you want when others also get what they want. What I've learned from hustling is that you can't only get what you want alone, and you can't be the only one to get what you want in a world that is populated with 7 billion people, right? Achievement, even self achievement, to an extent, is mutually beneficial achievement. For whatever you have
Mm.
achieved, someone else on the back end has achieved something too.
Mm.
So for me, it took a lot to realize that because I'm a hard worker, I'm a sprinter, I'm someone who
Mm.
can work myself to the ground. But I got to a breaking point where I realized that no matter how hard I work, I need to understand that I live in an interconnected world. I
Mm.
am a spiritual being that is connected to other people. And if I don't realize the fact that I'm living in a universe, then I will never achieve what I really want. So that allowed for me to transcend from understanding that hustle is not about me, it's about we, and it's about
Mm.
impact. Because the more impact you can make, the more reward you will get. And not to go too much into philosophy and stuff like that, but to go back to the law of karma, right? What you put out, you will always get back. So if you consistently put out self, me, there's only one you. You're only going to get back me, right?
Mm.
But if you consistently put out we, us, more, you will get the energy you're putting out from others back to you. And that's essentially what allows for you to compound your interest with regards to your efforts and allows for you to optimize your efforts to give you better returns. So I went from working hard to optimizing my efforts by collaborating with others in a mutually beneficial way based on ethics and integrity. And for me, following that path creates long term sustainability in terms of your efforts and peace of mind because you're not doing anything wrong to get what you want. And as you go about the journey of getting what you want, others are benefiting in an honest and ethical way.
So, and I love that idea about impact, collective growth, and building out from that. Have you? And I'll start with T on this one. Um, but the concept of setting boundaries, right? And I talk about this whether it is on an early stage of your career or whether you're driving towards a certain space, because the idea of setting boundaries sometimes is also part of why we fail to stop hustling, to always be on. Um, is there something that you still do today that you just go, I shouldn't have done that, or are there things that you've done or things that you used to do that you no longer do?
Yeah.
I'd like to
Yeah.
understand the good and the bad,
Yeah.
mainly the
That's a
bad.
great That's a really great question, right? Because I think when you're really hustling really hard and you really want a predetermined outcome that you've given for yourself, one thing that we don't think about as human beings is the fact that there's two ways to get what you want. There's the ethical way and there's the unethical way, right? And along your path to getting what you want, you will get both temptations coming your way, right? And sometimes refusing the unethical way does not allow for you to get to the outcome in the time that you wanted to get there, right? Corruption, lying, doing things in shortcut manners, right? You can get there quicker if you take those routes. But the reality is that when you don't do that, sometimes you don't get it as quickly as you would love to. So one thing I've not regretted, but I've always reflected on is like, oh damn, if I had to do it like these other guys who were taking shortcuts, I would be there now, you know? But I've stuck to my principles. I've stuck to my morals. I've stuck to what I want in terms of long-term sustainability. And I've stuck to who I am as a human being, which is someone of high integrity. And yes, I've taken the longer route, but the longer route for me is more fulfilling. It comes with rewards that are worth more than money and the outcome itself. And in turn, what that has done for me is that it's actually built my motivation. If I can compare myself to equal counterparts who take shortcuts, yes, they may have more than me. They may have gotten where I would have loved to get at the same time, but I've learned more. I'm smarter. I'm wiser, and I have more drive and resilience than they do. Simply because I've chosen the harder route.
I love that because sometimes there's no shortcut towards experiences. You can't suddenly get there without having gone through something. And so, Solo, boundary setting to you. What does that mean, and how do you achieve it? And what are the one thing that you currently suck when it comes to boundary setting?
Oh man, the one just had to pick one. Okay,
Just one.
choose one of them. But even just before I say that, can I just say, like, I just love what you just shared now. Like, just the idea of what I'm hearing in regards to just being aware of who you are and what it is that matters to you, and ultimately what are the core drivers of who you are, and knowing that has allowed you to be able to progress and hustle and optimize at your pace without feeling the need to do the things which other people around you are doing. And I'm so sorry, I have a question. This is the therapist in me. I apologize, but it just makes me curious though, like, what was it, do you think, that contributed to your ability to have that self-awareness to the degree that you not only recognized it, but were able to stand your ground in the face of, whoa, look around me and all these people are taking shortcuts and all these people are getting there ahead of me. what was it that allowed you to stand your ground and just be you and just do you?
Yeah. Wow. Good question. So for me, I mean, I believe you're the average of the 5 people you hang around, right? And if you want to control yourself, then try to control your environment, because even if you're an angel, if you hang around 5 demons, you will become a demon. So I've just been lucky in the sense that from a personal and professional perspective, God's grace has put me in the environment that's allowed for me to shape and maintain my character. And because of the environment that I have around me, not only do I need to be accountable to myself, but if I'm not accountable to myself, my environment will hold me accountable too. So I've got two bases to rely on. If I let myself down, then I let my environment down. And when I let myself down, I know my environment will hold me accountable. And to an extent, if the environment is highly principled, you only have a certain number of mistakes you can make before that good environment kicks you out. So I like to follow the correct environment and the correct friends and the correct mentors, because by default, without me having to do the right thing, I will do the right thing because I'm in the right place. And think of it like this. If we look at the weather, or if we look at our house, let's situate ourselves in London, right? You're coming off the street, you're coming into the house, and the heat is warm. Because the heat is on and the house is warm, you too will feel warm. And because of that, you're going to take off your jacket, you're going to take off your socks, you're going to take off your shoes, right? That's not of your own doing. That is a reaction to the environment. And that's how I like to look at my associations with people as well. The environment you place yourself within will create a reaction that is not of your own doing. And if you're not conscious of that, even if you have a great character, the reaction is not of your doing. And that's where regret comes from. And mistakes come from. And acting out of character comes from. It doesn't come from the individual being a bad person. And that's why forgiveness is a big thing in life. It doesn't come from the person. It comes from the person being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And the environment dominating the character of that person, causing a reaction for that person to act out of character. So that's how I control myself. I always control myself. Yes, there's a form of independence that you need, and everyone needs that. But I still think that the greater influence on who you are and what you do is the environment you choose to place yourself in.
Yeah, man.
If I say no to what you put forward, no, I'm not going to say no. If I challenge that point, right? And my challenge is around some people don't have the luxury of choosing some of those elements, right? You don't have the luxury of going, the people that I know are fantastic. And then I guess, that's why it's always great to have mentors, it's always good to have role models and all that stuff. But at times people don't have the luxury of that, right?
Yeah.
So, but then you still find even in those spaces that there are people who are able to put boundaries, are able to set the right processes and themselves drive that around and essentially become the environment and the role model for people around them. So my no is situated around, surely there's another way. And I'm not discarding that the environment plays a significant role. But I also wonder if there's another route where, as an individual, the accountability with you as an individual can drive a better outcome regardless of the environment.
Yeah, so I like that, right? I mean, if we look at statistics, right? If you're born in a gang-ridden area, the chances of you becoming a gangster are higher, right? That doesn't discount that everyone who's born in a gang-ridden area will become a gangster, right?
Yep.
That's where individual choice comes into play. But the reality is that the minority will always be that person who comes out, right? So that self-independence that you speak about, the will, the grit to say no, comes from you, right? But for the average person, you will do the average thing. And the question is, how do you rise above being the average person, right? And you guys know about the Pareto principle, right? Yes, God made everyone equal. God made everyone equal. But if you look at the balance of things, be it in the animal kingdom, be it with humans, 20% rise to the top, and 80% are average and below. Not my design, but that's nature's design. And as a human being, if you understand that very quickly, you then activate the ability to make a choice. Do I want to be cream of the cake, or do I want to be the cake itself? And I think that's what liberates people. And unfortunately, yes, some people will never get there. It's not your fault, because environment plays a factor, your upbringing, who you surround yourself with. But we all have an inner voice to an extent. And I think the longer you ignore that inner voice, the quicker it dies. And when it dies, unless some sort of miracle happens.
And so, Suelo, then a question to you. You talk a lot about self-awareness and
Yes.
the ability for an individual to identify themselves, their needs, and therefore build character. I'm going to call it that,
Yeah.
for lack of a better word, right? So, in your view, and in my know, I would like to hear your what you feel might be an alternative route for people to sort of to build that individual aspect. Because what I want personally is that 20% is, and it's fair and it's true, and statistics 100% with UT. But I think with the right mentorship, the right support, the right insight, we can flip that script. That 80% become the norm, and that
100%.
20% becomes something else. So, Suelo, please help us have that switch around where 80% of the people don't need the environment, and only 20% need the environment.
Man,
No pressure.
no pressure to answer probably one of the biggest questions in the world right now. But like, I think I would be doing everyone a disservice by saying that we don't need or are not even greatly influenced by the people around us, or that we don't need a tribe, because honestly, part of the self-awareness piece, I would tell you to call upon your tribe, to call upon your tribe to say, hey, this is how I view myself. Am I seeing it right? Or are
Yeah.
they some of the blind spots that I have? So part of the journey of self-awareness as well comes in the context of community. But one of the things that I would say is like I love what you said, Tineo, and you bring up statistics. And I've never been a statistician, but ever since I studied data analytics, I'm just obsessed, absolutely obsessed. I've always loved data and I've always loved analytics, but statistics is like it's a lot of math, a lot of numbers. But I love that you bring that up, and the idea of what is called the outlier. The one who grew up in the gang, but somehow managed to make it out.
Yeah.
That outlier in the data set where you're like, that's a weird one. What's going on there? And a lot of the times it gets ignored. I would say that part of the process, or even part of my encouragement or hope for people, is that you can consider yourself, even though you might start in that kind of majority data set, that you can consider yourself someone who can migrate from there into the outlier region. But as you do so, number one, think about, what is it that I'm going to be standing for? Because if you want to be an outlier just to be an outlier, just to be like the cool person or the influencer or, the thought leader, and you have no grounding, you have nothing that you are about, you have nothing that is truly like your reason to breathe, then you just become a subset of the data and not really a real outlier, And so as you kind of journey into the realm of, okay, how do I become this part of this 20%, really just authentically, genuinely asking yourself the real questions about who you are and what you're going to stand for, and giving yourself the space to figure that out. Because if we're honest, for all of us, we go through life and that question changes at different stages in our lives. We get married, all of a sudden I have to reevaluate, what am I about? What do I stand for? You have a kid, all of a sudden you have to reevaluate, what am I about? What do I stand for? But just having the courage, letting it be your default, to be courageous enough to keep asking that question of yourself so that you can authentically and honestly answer what is it, what is it going to be about for me, and just having that innate natural curiosity about yourself, within yourself, I think is a fundamental first step, you know. But I will also admit, like, look at me, I'm about to play my own devil's advocate here, but like, there are people, I don't know how often you guys hear this in the African context, but in Zambia, a lot of times I hear things like, oh, those are white people things, you know, like, as Africans, we do not have the luxury of this emotional introspection or navel gazing, you know, like, we just have to get to it. You just have to work. You have to do, you have to hustle. That's what you have to do. You can't take time to introspect. And my only comebacks to that are really, I hear you. Yeah, like, the need for the hustle is real. You don't hustle, you don't eat. I get that. But at some point, we have to do better for ourselves. Otherwise, we end up at the 80% all the time. And there's room for us to be at the 20. We should be moving our way to the 20 and taking the rest of us with us, so that we do flip that script, as DK said. So a hunger to want to get there, but also a hunger to want to get there right, to want to get there with a people-minded centeredness about us, that says, I want to get there. I want to be that outlier. I want to be a super outlier that cares about people and brings people along the journey with me. Yeah.
And I love what you spoke there. As you were speaking, in my head, I was just ringing purpose, 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 purpose,
Mm,
purpose. Right? And I think based on what you said, the question that I have for you now is beyond the bottom line, beyond hustling, your purpose changes, right? You change as a human being. When you're young, you want to be best prefect or the best athlete. Then you graduate, and you want to have this job, and then you become a mom or a dad, then you want to be this. How does someone continually find their purpose through the continuous changes and phases of who you are as a human being? Because I think that's what sustains
yeah.
who you
Yeah.
essentially are, right? And keeps a consistent character. So I just love to hear your perspectives based on the story that you shared, because I think you broke it down
Mm,
really well.
yeah. Man, on behalf of the 8 billion people out there, I think this is what you should do. I'm just kidding. I can truly only ever speak from, like, even just my own experience.
I was getting a pen and paper because I was gonna write this down on behalf of the 8 billion people to be like,
On
okay,
behalf
guys,
of everyone
I've
out
got the
there.
answer. I've got the answer, and I'll just put it on my.
Um, what I will say is really what has worked for me, and some of the things that I will suggest to people that I am privileged to cross paths with through my profession as a therapist, through the work that I do corporately. But again, I would just say, always maintain a curiosity for yourself that lacks judgment, self-judgment. Because I think the older we get as well, the more of these judgmental
Yeah.
voices come into our heads around who we are. Whether it's, oh, I wanted to be the astrophysicist and now look, I'm just a secretary, or I wanted to
Yeah.
be married and look, now I'm single and I'm 39, you know, like, and then we have all of these self-judgments around where we are and who we are. And that sometimes can restrict us from being willing and open to exploring, okay, so some of these things may not have happened the way I thought they would. How do I reevaluate what purpose looks like for me now, or what meaning looks like for me now? Because to ask that question feels scary, because the last time we were curious and excited about self, we were kids, and then look how it ended up. So if I continue to be excited and curious about myself, what if I disappoint myself again? But kind of toting that line of just being okay with the fact that you are going to be a mess up. We all are. As human beings, we're all gonna, there's things which we're never gonna achieve that we hope to achieve. And there's some things that we're gonna achieve that are far beyond anything we could ever have dreamed for
For
ourselves.
sure. For sure.
But being willing to constantly ask ourselves the question of, have my priorities changed? Have my values changed? And there being no judgment in that. So Now I may not be as spiritual as I once was. Let me not judge myself for that. Let me honestly explore that. Maybe now I'm more spiritual than I ever was. My family was never spiritual. And now look at me. Let me not judge myself for that. Or, I never wanted kids. Now I've got whatever it is,
Yeah, for sure.
that
For sure.
explore it with a non-judgment within
And
ourselves.
and so I love that question. And I'll share maybe something on my personal view.
Yeah.
Was a discussion I had with a mentor essentially. They said life is potentially comes in phases. So in different phases of your life, you will have different priorities, and the phase might be 1 year or 2 years, right?
Yeah.
But you then said, in this phase, I'm aiming for X, and then you can work hard towards getting to somewhere, but then that phase will come and then it will go. But it is
Mm,
also not a bad thing that it's going or that it's come. And I think it just touches on exactly what you're talking about. Things are changing.
For sure.
People get married, get kids, get a promotion, and maybe in that moment, it requires you to be more X. And as long as
mm,
the support structure understands that, then you can
Wow.
both all be in that phase together, understanding what that phase looks like, and then you get out without judgment, which is, I think, a tying piece to both of what you guys said. Now, T, also about vulnerability as a male within this context, because we talk about no judgment.
Yeah.
mm,
How does, I mean, as a man, number one, I'm supposed to be able to provide. Number two, I'm not supposed to show weakness. Number three, I'm supposed to protect. Number four, I'm carrying more. And number five, there's even more on top of that. So how does that then work in that world of not only purpose, but hustle, but well-being all at the same time?
For sure. For sure. So, I mean, this is just my personal perspective, right? But I believe that the definition of what being a man is also evolving with the changing times. And I think a lot of human beings are not grappling with the fact that a man in 1950 and a man in 2025 are different, right? So I think when we say man, a lot of us, when we say man, we're relating to the man in 1950 or 1970 or 1990, right? And when we speak about strength and being hard and having to provide and not showing your emotions, we're relating to that guy, right? But the new man that's relevant to this environment, that's involved, that's living with a different generation. I mean, now we're living with like boomers, Gen Zs, you've got the new guys coming in. What they perceive as a man is not that guy, right? To an extent, the latest generation view that other guy as an abusive guy, right? So for me, what it is to be a man is to have alignment with those around you. Because you don't define yourself. You can define yourself as much as you want, right?
mm,
But a man is someone who serves his environment and who uplifts his environment, right?
mm,
According to the needs and wants of his environment.
And
So
and so I love that. And Sulo, then on your side, when you're looking and talking to different people, how much does culture and this idea of vulnerability play in sort of this changing dynamic world?
for
Because,
sure.
and then
mm,
then, then I'll open it up for the both of you because I'm just trying to
For
start a
sure. For sure.
conversation.
So I mean for myself, I believe everything in life evolves.
mm,
Dogs, nature evolves. I mean, the lions have changed. The way they look like, the way lions looks have changed. The way trees looks have changed over time. Humans have changed over time through evolution, and I believe that culture too should also evolve, right? And when culture doesn't evolve, it becomes dangerous. And I
mm,
think that's where the culture of man, that's where the culture that takes the longest to evolve is the one that dies the fastest, right? And if
mm,
I'm a Catholic myself, if I look at the Catholic Church itself, the reason why the Catholic Church still remains and is evolved is because it's adapted to certain environments. Not to say that preservation of your old roots won't keep you, because on the opposite end, you've got the Muslim culture and the Islam culture, which hasn't changed forever, right? But from my perspective, I believe that evolving is healthy. I believe that it allows for a better mental well-being. It allows for a transparent lifestyle without secrecy, and it essentially allows for you to relate to more people. And that's what you want as a human being, because the more people you can relate to, the more you can make a positive impact on others. And the problem with culture is that it decreases your ability to relate. And if you cannot
Beautiful.
relate, you judge.
Mm.
So that's just
But
my take on it. Yeah.
yeah,
And then
and
from
in
a
the same, sorry, I'm
Go
just
for it.
vulnerability,
add a little bit there, but I can think in the same breath, I think it's important for us to recognize what you said though, like that there is a definite impact of culture on how we show up in the world and how vulnerable we
100%.
allow ourselves to be, and how whether or not I'm going to go in the bathroom and cry because I don't want anyone else to see me or not, like
For sure.
culture
For sure.
impacts on that.
Yeah.
And whether the culture has evolved or not to the point where I can come out boldly with my tears as a man, not me, but speaking like if I were a man, that if culture has not yet evolved to that degree, then I will be impacted by that. And I
For
will
sure.
struggle then to show up in alternative ways because the culture still does have an impact. And
100%.
unfortunately, there's so many parts of the world, society, organizations, even subsets of culture, because you have the general culture of a
For sure.
country
For
or
sure.
place, you have subset cultures within organizations, within specific communities. And each of those have their own different cultural makeup. And some of it is not conducive for that balance between let me be vulnerable with what I
For
need and
sure.
where I'm at and how I'm doing versus that
Wow.
image of strength that I need to portray, or showing that I have it together, or even showing that, yeah, I'm achieving, my hustle is paying off,
Yeah.
I'm making
For sure.
X million dollars a week just from my socials, like whatever it is, it's still impacting. And we need to be aware of that.
For sure. And that's what you call a slow death, right? Some
Mm,
people die inside before they die in physical. And I think
mm,
that comes from lack of vulnerability. I think
mm,
also vulnerability in today's time is a magnet, especially for men. I've seen it
mm,
myself. I am very masculine in nature and my personality, but I'm also vulnerable at the same time. And what's that done for me in my personal life? It's gathered me a following, believe it or not. Because you become accessible when you're vulnerable.
mm,
Um,
And I
and I
love
think that's
that.
what men of today don't realize.
And I love that idea of being accessible because I think you can only help people if you are accessible. And
100%.
and just yesterday, actually, I was talking to somebody and they talked about a rule of three. And the rule of three for them was when they're in a room, they attempt to meet somebody who is doing much better than them, meet somebody who is at their same level or at their peer or colleague, and then meet somebody who is striving to do more and
Wow.
to be where they
Wow.
are. And the idea
Wow.
for them is they want to be able to lift the person who's striving to do more. They want to share and learn from the person who's at the same level. And then for the one who's ahead, they want to learn. And whatever they
Oh,
learn from the top, they want to give to both parties. That's the one on the same level and the one that's likely at a different level. And for me, that's only possible if you're vulnerable. And if you're
mm,
indeed.
not
Yeah.
vulnerable, then all of it
There's
is a
nothing.
waste.
No
mm,
access.
mm.
Oh,
Can I
Yeah,
just, can I just, can,
go
as
for it.
you did before, DK, can I like rebut that or put in?
I'm willing. I'm open. If you think that's a lie, tell me because I will defend it to the end.
You defend it. You defend it.
Yeah.
I do you not think that like I love that idea and it sounds really meaningful and I'm like, oh, that's really cool. But then there's a part of me that kind of struggles with that as well to a degree. Because there's a part of me that feels like it doesn't really matter whether someone is quote unquote striving to be in the position that I am in, or seemingly on the same level as where I'm at, or even seemingly ahead of or where I would want to be, somewhere I'm striving for too. I think we can learn from everyone. So I feel like I
mm,
can constantly be learning from the person who is in a position that I want to be in, and I can be learning from the person who we are at level with. I hate the idea of hierarchy.
Yeah.
I really do. But I could also learn so much from the person who is quote unquote still striving to get to where I am, because their current struggles may not be mine. And I don't know if you've experienced this even through the hustle, but as I was starting my own company, I remember meeting up with several people. Like, I would meet with people for lunch and just talk to them. And it's amazing how quickly people start to give you advice when they think that you're like, I started my company, and they've had their company for a few years, and then they start giving you all of this advice. And this is how you should run your company. And you're going to have all of these obstacles, and and they're like coaching you. And it's like, thank you. I appreciate your wisdom, but that has no relation to where I'm at. Like, I cannot relate to that at all. And so if we really just took the time to get to know every single person from the vantage point of, I can learn something from you. Like, what am I going to take away from this that helps me be a better advocate for self and for others? And then also still be able to strive to be in a better place as well. Don't you think that that's possible across the rule of three as well?
T, do you want to maybe make a comment? Because
Yeah.
I'm moderating,
yeah,
but I will respond.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, I think obviously because of time and stuff like that, I think we're all speaking on a very generic level. But I think hierarchy also has got to do with definitions. So, like, if I use myself as a personal example, I mean, I'll be honest, I hang around people who are financially lower than I am. But I do that because it gives me context to what I have, and it gives me the gratitude to seek more. Right. So for me, I tend to benefit more from being around other people who are less fortunate than I am. Right. But I think in the context that Ziggy was speaking about, could be by definition of career or company ownership or wealth, or so I think it depends how you look at it, right? If it's
So,
if it's the status thing, then it's hierarchy. But if it's
so
not,
I'll give an example.
But people are people. It
I'll
doesn't
give an
matter if
example.
you're
I'll
the
give an
CEO
example.
or if you're the
I'll
cleaner.
give you
People
an
are,
example.
right?
So I'll give you an example, Suelo.
Go for
I
it.
got a massive interest in technology and all this cool stuff, fun stuff, right? The metaverse is one thing that I am like, wow. So if I am looking to gain and learn about that, and I look and have admiration for an individual in their knowledge in that space, that
Yeah.
person is most likely going to be much younger than me. And it is to go, wow, that is
yes,
amazing. And so I am looking up at them regardless of their age, regardless of whatever. So I
Yeah.
don't
good.
I don't think that I look at it as what where is person X? What can I learn from them? And that's how
Yeah.
I then look up and revere them in that context. Now the
Mhm.
alternative is the alternative as well from me walking into a room looking for the three is I 100% agree with you. It's important to know, learn, seek to understand first. Once you've understood, only at that point can you put yourself
Mhm.
in a position where you can start having that. But I'm wrapping this up, and I really want to make some comments based on comments that we're seeing in the comment section. And essentially, the first one is hustling involves a lot of discipline. Show how then do you maintain your integrity or able to balance your life as well as maintaining boundaries? Any
Hmm.
comments on that one? How do you maintain your integrity or able to maintain the balance within lives whilst you're maintaining those boundaries? What are your thoughts? And you got 1 minute,
I mean, for
literally.
me, I'll answer in 30 seconds. For me, integrity is a you thing. It's got to do with you. And then I think balance comes across in cycles. There's times of no balance and there's times of balance, depending on where you are in life. I don't
Absolutely.
believe you can be balanced all the time.
Yeah. 100%.
Perfect.
100%. Yeah.
So this life has no balance, is what I've heard. So we'll go to the next one. Is there is a time for everything, as Scripture says. Hunger to want to get there right, and knowing where you are and what you are. I think that's a comment, and I think that's a comment that's been shared and discussed as well here. And then the last
Mm.
comment that was there as well in the chat is learn from other people's experiences. And I love that more so than
Mm.
anything because this platform here that we've put together is a space where we're looking to learn from each other. with these discussions that we put forward, with the comments that have come through. We really appreciate the time that you guys have taken. And in closing, there are two things that I'm going to ask from each one of you is a a closing remark and one thing that you've learned through this discussion. So if you want, I'm gonna let one of you guys. You guys can.
Ladies first.
And the lady can say no. I insist. The man, go ahead.
Oh, I insist. This is a new era. Culture
Yeah.
has
So
evolved. So Tineo.
Tineo,
Yeah.
go for it.
I mean, for myself, I'm going to steal a quote that I live by Stephen Covey. And for me, it's the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. So whatever is main in your life at the time, keep it to that, and all the other principles and values. If you know yourself, will get you through. If you don't know yourself, then you can't keep the main thing the main thing. But if you know yourself, then keep the main thing the main thing, because your values and your integrity will get you there.
Beautiful. Suelo?
Kind of similar to that, I guess. I feel like it's almost similar, but this just came to mind even with the last question about integrity. I think everything that matters is a choice, and we have to keep choosing the right things every day. We have to keep choosing to be people of integrity. We have to keep choosing to loving people well. We have to keep choosing to be honest. Those are all choices that we have to actively make. And in that lies the discipline. So I love that prerequisite, even in that question, that this comes with discipline, because it does. It's a constant daily choice to be honest, faithful, have integrity, all of those things. So, and I just feel like this time together has been, hugely beneficial for me. And I've learned a lot from you, Tineo. I love what you said about like the culture of where you're at and just the impact that has had on your ability to, what I kind of rephrase, well, it's not my words, but one of my professors' name's Michael Trishman, the ability to explore versus exploit, hustle versus the hardship. That was a good reminder. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I think once again, I can't take credit for it. It's not me. That's why I said I was lucky to be in that environment. But I mean, speaking to you just gave me a lot more gratitude and humility as to sometimes it's right time, right place. It's got nothing to do with who you are. And we have to acknowledge that the fact that there's a higher power that makes things happen. So thank you for your conversations as well, because it gave me a lot of context on some stuff that I needed to reflect on. And has made me a lot more conscious of where I am.
Super, super, super. And you know what? If anybody on this has really enjoyed this whole session, this webinar, I think the courage of healing, one of the transformation T4L courses, actually really would speak to something that might be of interest. And really in that course, we look to break down the idea or the notion of sort of toxic productivity, the patterns associated to toxic productivity. We look to build self-awareness and resilience within high-pressure environments, breaking down boundaries and or setting boundaries without feeling that level of guilt, redefining ambition, which should incorporate well-being, and develop some practical work frames around ensuring that you not only heal, but you are approaching some of these challenges in a very structured manner. And then I think we talked a lot about those things when we were having this discussion. And if I was going to just do a 1 second roundup on what some of those things that we did, I mean, the average of the people in the environment that you're part of is incredibly important. We work and we live in an environment where we're interconnected, where we meet together, and I'd love for us to continue growing, sharing our experiences, and meeting up every single month for these type of discussions, because together we are stronger. And if we are exercising a large level of self-awareness, then beyond that, we can build upon the discipline towards getting to a greater purpose. And for me, I felt that what we talked about really touched on all of those elements, provided people some insight as to getting to that place that we are really all striving for. And for me, I am so grateful that I was able to get some really good experts, made my life easy personally. And I really thank you all for taking this time out today. And for the listeners, for you guys sacrificing your Friday, whatever the time is for you. I really appreciate it, and thank you so much. And we'll see you guys next month. Follow the links and the posts, and let's share this message as far and as wide as we can. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you, Ziggy. Thank you, Suelo. Cheers, guys.
Bye.
You don't have to burn out to stand out, and healing doesn't mean slowing down your success. Inside Transformation Leader, we're rewriting what high performance looks like by building community around balance. Join our Shameless Circles, where leaders like you talk honestly about burnout, boundaries, and rebuilding confidence. Then log your growth in the Impact Log, because healing yourself is how we start healing workplace. Head to www.t4leader.com and join the ecosystem and take one brave step towards thriving, not just surviving.